A lot happened in the first 2 seasons of Invincible. Fortunately, we've got the only recap you need before you dive into Season 3. Mark Grayson seems like an average teenager. He has a crush on a girl at his school named Amber Bennett and has a real knack for getting beat up by the school bully. However, everything changes once Mark finally develops his latent powers.
It's about time.
Mark's father just so happens to be the most powerful superhero on Earth, Nolan Grayson, aka Omni-Man. Nolan is from the planet Viltrum, and he came to Earth to help protect it. At least, that's the story. For a while, Nolan teaches Mark how to use his powers, which definitely come with a learning curve. It turns out flying isn't as easy as it looks. Mark's rise into superhero-dom is complete once he gets his signature blue and yellow costume. There's just one problem with Mark's whole happy family setting. His dad is into killing superheroes, like really into it. Omni-Man visits a hero collective known as the Guardians of the Globe and murders them all. Omni-Man himself survives, although he's unconscious and badly injured. With the Guardians of the Globe dead and Omni-Man out of commission, Earth is severely unprepared when extra-dimensional aliens known as Flaxons invade. Mark tries to stop them, but since he isn't very good at using his powers yet, he's quickly overwhelmed. Fortunately, he gets a helping hand from a group of younger heroes known as the Teen Team. It's an eclectic team to say the least, and a good example of the wild types of superpowers you see in the show. Their lead is Robot, who is, well, a robot. Duplicate can create copies of herself for battle. If one of her doubles gets killed, she remains alive as long as there's one more of her left. There's also Rexplode, a cocky hero who can turn anything into an explosive projectile. Then there's Samantha Wilkins, aka Atom Eve, who can manipulate matter on the molecular level. Mark soon recognizes her as a girl who goes to his very school. She takes him to meet the Teen Team, and they become close friends through their shared superheroics as time goes on. Speaking of Atom Eve, she definitely has some of the most impressive powers on the series. Season 1 gives a few glimpses into her less-than-ideal home life, but the Invincible Atom Eve special is where we really see how tragic her backstory is. Born as part of a government experiment to effectively create a human weapon, she's saved from a life of torment by Dr. Elias Brandyworth, who realizes the error of his ways and hides her from his boss, Steven Erickson. At a hospital, Brandyworth gives a newborn child to a couple whose infant has just died, so that she can try to have a normal life. As Samantha gets older, her powers begin to manifest. While her abilities could change the planet for the better, it makes her father angry at her for being a freak. Despite Brandyworth's desire to keep Samantha away from Erickson, the latter finds her and seeks to use her for his own gain. But after Erickson kills Brandyworth and Polly, Samantha's biological mother, Samantha taps into even greater potential.
I see it all now. Every single molecule around us.
Up to this point, she was never able to manipulate organic matter, but that all changes when she goes into Erickson's mind and wipes his memories. Without him knowing about her, she returns home and joins the Teen Team. Teen Team isn't the most effective bunch of heroes, but they have heart and do their best to make things better. After the Flaxons invade a few more times, Cecil Stedman, director of the global defense agency that works with superheroes to protect the planet, figures some of them might be good enough for a promotion of sorts. He appoints Robot to be the new leader of the Guardians of the Globe and tasks him with filling out the roster. After a set of tryouts, Robot fills out its ranks with a few new faces. There's Monster Girl, who can turn into a powerful green beast, but every time she transforms, she reverts in age. So even though she's technically in her 20s, she looks like a 14-year-old. Shrinking Ray can alter her size to become incredibly small, while Black Samson wears a super suit to enhance his strength after losing his powers. Duplicate, Rexplode, and Atom Eve are also picked, though Eve turns the offer down because Rex, who was her boyfriend, had been cheating on her with Duplicate, and she ain't working with that. After Omni-Man kills the Guardians of the Globe, Damien Darkblood, a demonic private investigator, takes on the case to determine the murderer's identity.
No suspects, no leads.
How does he...
I don't know. Demon magic or something.
It's a narrow list of suspects, and it isn't long before Darkblood starts honing in on Nolan as the most likely killer. As a demon, Darkblood knows evil when he sees it, so after getting nothing out of Nolan at the Guardian's funeral, he visits Mark's mom, Debbie, to see what she knows. It turns out it's not much, as Nolan has largely kept her in the dark regarding his superhero experiences. Darkblood takes his findings to Cecil, who also knows that Nolan is really the only possible culprit. However, he can't move against Nolan without knowing precisely why he did it or what other machinations are in play. For disobeying orders, Cecil sends Darkblood back to Hell. But Darkblood is a crafty demon. Before going back to Hellfire, Darkblood leaves his notepad in Debbie's home, where she eventually finds it. His work only makes her suspicions grow larger, and her greatest fears are confirmed when she finds one of Nolan's superhero suits covered in blood, all but confirming that he's the one who killed the Guardians. It's a big universe out there, as Mark discovers when he fights Alan the alien. Of course, it turns out to be a big misunderstanding, as Alan got his planets mixed up.
I don't know what to tell you, man. Your planet signed up for the program. See? Request from Urath for evaluation.
Urath? This is Earth!
They leave on friendly terms, and Mark goes back to dealing with terrestrial threats for a short time. Mark soon returns to space, accompanying a human mission to Mars to ensure the astronauts' safety. But even this little cosmic jaunt is out of Mark's league. They're only on the red planet for a few minutes before he loses them.
What?
He tracks them down and discovers that Martians capture the astronauts because they're afraid that a race of parasitic pink aliens called sequids will take over the astronauts and absorb them into their hive mind. That would make the sequids powerful enough to conquer Mars and eventually Earth. Well, Mark does his thing and rescues the astronauts, but there's a stowaway. One Martian who can shapeshift assumes the identity of one of the crew, Russ Livingston. Meanwhile, the real Livingston is stuck on Mars and gets assimilated by the sequids, beginning their takeover of the red planet. Robot may look like a cold, heartless hunk of metal, but there's a lot more going on behind those lifeless eye screens. Using a sample of Rexplode's blood, Robot sets out to clone a human body. To make it happen, he forms a temporary alliance with the Mauler twins, hyper-intelligent bad guys and experts in cloning. Through these efforts, Robot's true identity is revealed. He's actually a boy named Rudolph Connors, who has a severe deformity that confines him to life inside a pod. It's Rudolph who's been controlling Robot all along, at least until the Maulers succeed in creating him a new body. A prepubescent version of Rex that now goes by the name Rudy. After the Maulers' work for him is done, Rudy sets it up so that they're immediately arrested. But the Maulers have their own devious plan in place. After retrieving the body of former Guardians leader, the Immortal, the Maulers revive him, believing they can control him for their own gain. That doesn't work out too well for them, but it brings Immortal back to life to play one more important part in the story. Invincible Season 1 is largely about Mark learning how to be a hero and not being so naive. Unfortunately, he learns certain things the hard way. Titan, a criminal with the power to form a protective barrier of rock around his skin, asks him to take down the big crime boss of his city, Machine Head.
Which one's Machine Head? I'm kidding.
While Machine Head isn't exactly the world-ending threat that Mark has gotten used to fighting, Titan convinces Mark that improving communities is just as vital as stopping alien invasions to ensure people can live decent lives. And Mark finally agrees. But when Mark and Titan arrive at Machine Head's headquarters, they find he's been expecting them. Machine Head's right-hand guy, Isotope, teleports in a bunch of hulking superpowered enforcers that easily overwhelm Invincible. The Guardians of the Globe arrive to help, but even they can't do much to turn the tide of the battle. In the end, though, with several of the heroes barely clinging to life by a thread, they come out on top. Machine Head is arrested, bringing Titan's secret plan to fruition. He becomes the new crime boss. Just because you don't have superpowers in the Invincible universe doesn't mean you're in the clear. Mark, Amber, and Mark's friend William aren't even safe when they tour Upstate University. See, William visits a school because he's got his eye on a guy who goes there named Rick. But wouldn't you know it, Rick gets kidnapped by a psychotic genius exchange student named D.A. Sinclair, who turns him into a zombie robot soldier. Mark puts a stop to Sinclair's plan, but since he's trying to keep his secret identity safe, Amber thinks he's running away all the time and leaving her in danger. Predictably, Amber breaks up with him. However, her reasoning gets muddled later when she admits that she knows Mark must have been invincible all along.
I'm not an idiot. I figured it out weeks ago.
Why does she get upset that he always bails if she knows he's a superhero saving lives? Who knows? Anyway, despite Mark's efforts to stop DA, Cecil takes an interest in his project and hires him to create more zombie robot Reanimen for the Global Defense Agency. Hey, sometimes saving the planet means getting your hands a little dirty.
Shut it! I feel dirty even talking to you.
Once Debbie confronts Nolan about the bloody uniform he stashed away after killing the Guardians, things get spicy quick. He realizes the GDA has been keeping tabs on him from the house across the street, so first he stops there and kills everyone, including Cecil's right-hand man, Donald, who seemed kind of sketchy at first, but turned out to be a pretty cool dude.
It's been an honor, sir. Who are you talking to?
Cecil starts throwing everything he can at Nolan before he can get to them, but it's not enough. Cue Immortal. Remember him? The dead Guardian who got revived by the Mauler twins? Well, he remembers what Omni-Man did to him and soars off to get vengeance. While news choppers record everything for the world, Omni-Man and Immortal engage in an aerial fight that ends in Immortal, once again, brutally dying. But this time, everyone knows who did it, including Mark. It's here that Nolan lets his son in on the secret he's kept for decades. He is indeed an alien from Viltrum, who's been raised since birth to become a powerful warrior. but he didn't get sent to Earth on a peacekeeping mission like Mark's always believed. Well, sort of. He is on Earth to raise humans' quality of living and usher them into the Viltrumite Empire. The twist is he has to cull all the weaker specimens, which is most of the world. He also lives for a super long time. Meeting Debbie and having a child with her was nice for him, but he always expected to outlive Debbie and have Mark help him conquer humanity. Let's just say Mark doesn't like that idea. From the get-go, Invincible has never been afraid to showcase gory violence, but the Season 1 finale goes for broke. While Omni-Man and Invincible fight, Omni-Man tries to convince his son that humans are the equivalent of ants to them. Their battle leads them to Chicago, which suffers immense devastation. While Omni-Man is focused on beating Invincible senseless, Mark desperately attempts to save as many people as possible. So, to prove his point about how fragile and useless humans are, Omni-Man hauls Mark into a subway station and, well, we're not going to show you the rest of that scene, but you probably remember it. After that, they leave the city and keep fighting on their own, and Omni-Man beats his son within an inch of his life. But just before dropping the killing blow, he appears to have a change of heart. Omni-Man flies away from Earth, leaving Mark alone on the mountain. Mark soon heads to space to speak with Alan the alien, who finds it strange a Viltrumite would abandon their mission. Alan realizes that Mark could prove a valuable ally for the Coalition, an organization seeking to end the Viltrumite's pattern of conquering worlds. But more on that later. When Invincible Season 2 rolls around, Omni-Man is MIA, while Invincible recovers and goes about doing his superhero duties, and Evil proves it never takes a day off. The overarching non-Viltrumite villain for Season 2 is Angstrom Levy, a madman with the power to traverse the multiverse. However, when we first meet him, he has purely good intentions. He winds up on Mark's Earth and, with the help of the Maulers, constructs a device to gain the knowledge of every other Angstrom throughout the multiverse. Mark investigates the technology, though Angstrom is initially insistent that the Maulers shouldn't kill Mark, because he doesn't want his powers to lead to more death. It's a sentiment that doesn't last long. As Angstrom tries to turn his machine off, it explodes. This Angstrom is then driven mad by the memories of all other variations of himself, so he seeks revenge on our main Mark, who, ironically enough, seems to be one of the few good Marks across realities. Mark worked closely with Cecil to try to make amends for his father's actions and the destruction their fight caused to Chicago and the world. Meanwhile, the Guardians of the Globe get a shake-up too, with Cecil appointing a recently revived Immortal as the new leader, taking over for Robot/Rudy. He also adds a new hero to their ranks, Bulletproof, who's able to absorb kinetic energy to bolster his other powers, such as super speed, strength, and reflexes. The Guardians also add Shapesmith, the Martian who posed as an astronaut to get to Earth and is now masquerading as a regular human, albeit rather poorly.
I was born a baby human right here on the planet of Earth.
Season 2 also brings back another unexpected face. When Debbie talks with Cecil at the GDA, she also meets Donald? It's an awkward reunion, as Debbie knows that Nolan killed him, and unlike Immortal, he's just supposed to be a normal guy. It turns out Donald's a clone, and despite his memories getting erased initially, this new Donald quickly questions his existence. He eventually discovers that he's died many times, with each subsequent Donald making the choice to erase his memories so that he can do his job without all the trauma. Atom Eve is still effectively a free agent and focuses more on humanitarian efforts than simply beating up bad guys. She's not very good at it, but at least she tries, like when she constructs a neighborhood park, only for it to collapse because she built it on top of a sinkhole. It's a good reminder to Eve that there's more to her powers than simply making stuff out of whatever molecules are nearby. Mark, on the other hand, just sort of goes through the motions. He stops Doc Seismic, but the weight of what he represents clearly holds him down. Even his partnership with Cecil becomes strained when he goes to Atlantis to make amends for his father killing the Atlantean guardian of the globe, Aquarius. This involves trial by combat with an undersea beast. While Mark gets away from the Death Dweller, it gets loose and starts killing Atlanteans. And even though they want Mark dead, he goes back to save them. Despite Cecil telling Mark that he's not like his father, it's not enough for Mark to simply not be evil. Mark needs to actively bring good into the world. The theme of responsibility is present throughout Invincible, and Mark, arguably the most powerful hero on the planet, now that Omni-Man's gone, has more responsibility than anyone else to do what's right. Alan the Alien largely functioned as comic relief throughout Invincible Season 1.
I just fought you and I think you're quite vincible. Okay.
Season 2 brings him a little more to the forefront as his mission with the Coalition of Planets becomes clearer. Alan is a powerful Unopan who's specifically bred to be able to withstand fights against Viltrumites. He believes the Coalition has a unique opportunity to gain an advantage since Mark is half Viltrumite, and Nolan is now out of the picture on Earth.
For years, we've been searching for a hole in the Viltrumite's armor. This could be it.
But there are more immediate fish to fry before they can focus on the bigger picture. Thaddeus, the head of the coalition, tasks Alan to find a Viltrumite mole within their ranks. Before Alan can get too far in his investigation, he's brutally beaten in a fight against 3 Viltrumites, who then leave him for dead. Thaddeus pulls Alan off life support, revealing himself as the mole in question. Fortunately, Alan doesn't die. He's far too fun of a character to get rid of. Viewers later learn that by taking Alan off life support, Thaddeus made him even stronger to the point he can now really contend with Viltrumites. It's now Alan's job to get Mark to join them, and there's still a glimmer of hope that Nolan could be turned into an ally too. After Nolan leaves Earth, he's super distraught and even contemplates flying straight into a black hole. Instead, he does a good thing by saving a ship filled with Thraxan aliens. They make Nolan their ruler, and Nolan begins a relationship with a Thraxan named Andressa and fathers a purple-skinned child who looks mostly humanoid. Nolan then sends a Thraxan to Earth to bring Mark back to their planet. It's not exactly a happy reunion, but it proves necessary, as Nolan knows it's only a matter of time until Viltrumites arrive to take him prisoner. Mark and Nolan manage to defeat some Viltrumites, but Nolan's ultimately apprehended after being grievously wounded. Before being transported away, Nolan gives Mark an odd and rather cryptic farewell.
My books. Read my books, Mark.
Meanwhile, General Krieg, second in command of the Viltrum Empire, tasks Mark with continuing his father's mission on Earth, or else he'll face severe consequences. Krieg makes good on that promise when Mark and Amber are visited by Anissa, a powerful Viltrumite warrior who's there to check on Mark's progress with the whole conquering the world thing. The two duke it out, but Mark doesn't stand a chance against her. She spares him for the time being because killing him isn't her mission, but it's clear the Viltrumites aren't going to forget about the Graysons anytime soon. Once Mark returns to Earth, it's right back out to space with him to deal with an incoming Martian ship filled with sequids, the parasitic creatures which have overtaken Mars, now have their sights set on assimilating Earth. But the Guardians, along with Mark and Atom Eve, stop the invasion when Rudy creates a device that temporarily knocks out the sequids and detaches them from their hosts. The Guardians bring the real Russ home, but those sequids are sneaky, and nobody realizes that Russ harbors an extra sequid in his stomach, which he promptly vomits up so that it can reattach to him. Still, it's a more immediate victory than what the other half of the Guardians deal with. Rex, Duplicate, and Ray battle the Lizard League at a nuclear missile silo they've overtaken. Duplicate's copies are killed off faster than she can replicate. Shrinking Ray shrinks to go inside Komodo Dragon, but his exterior is too tough for her to expand, so she appears to get digested. Rex loses a hand and is shot in the head by King Lizard, but at the last minute, he manages to beat King Lizard and stop any nukes from getting launched. Rex and Ray are out of commission for a while as they heal, but as usual in cases like that, they both survive. And while it seems Kate's gone for good, Immortal soon learns that she keeps a backup copy of herself in a safe place just in case. The drama in Invincible isn't reserved solely for the superheroes. For example, after Mark's encounter with Anissa, he and Amber break up. Even with Mark's secrets out in the open, it's too much for Amber now that her life can be put in jeopardy. Mark also brought his purple-skinned half-brother back to Earth, and Debbie agrees to raise the child, naming him Oliver. Thraxans age far more rapidly than humans, so while he's a toddler now, it won't take long until he's the equivalent of a preteen, aka Kid Omni-Man in Invincible Season 3. Debbie hires a nanny, April Howsam, who works for Cecil and the GDA. She genuinely seems to have Oliver's best interests at heart, while Cecil wants to keep an eye on yet another Viltrumite on Earth. Then there's the matter of Rick, who's still suffering from a form of post-traumatic stress disorder after being subjected to D.A. Sinclair's experiments and contemplates jumping off a building. He's dissuaded from doing so when William asks Donald to come talk to him. Their conversation turns out to be therapeutic for Donald too, who finally comes to terms with being a clone. As part of his human cover, Nolan's backstory is that he's the author of various science fiction novels. Mark manages to get hold of these books and realizes that they could potentially hold valuable secrets about the Viltrumites. Once Alan gets a hold of the books, he confirms that the people and places in Nolan's so-called fictional adventures are actually based on real things.
Is that Space Racer?
Well, it's Space Rider in the book.
It's Space Racer in real life, and he is legendary.
That suggests that there's at least a kernel of truth in Nolan's writings that are worth exploring further. And if Mark's hunch is correct, it means the books are hiding the information they need to defeat the Viltrumites. There's a lot that happens in Invincible Season 2's 8 episodes. While Mark's looking for ways to stop the Viltrumite invasion, Angstrom is biding his time in the background, trying to figure out a way to defeat Invincible. It comes to a head when Angstrom holds Debbie and Oliver hostage, forcing Mark into a showdown. They hop across different universes, encountering various Easter eggs. This includes one reality that's been overrun by zombies, a clear nod to comic book writer Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead series. Invincible also meets Agent Spider, a clear parody of Spider-Man, whom Invincible teamed up with in the comics.
I saw the portal. I know you're from another dimension. Got way too much experience with that. Especially lately.
Of course, this is all just set dressing for the emotional battle between the two, which comes to a head when Angstrom breaks Debbie's arm. An enraged Mark then re-engages in the fight, battling Angstrom across realities and continuously punching him until he dies. Killing another human, even one as evil as Angstrom, devastates Mark. It brings up the question, is Mark really any different from people like Cecil or Nolan, or could he break bad at some point upon realizing that sometimes killing an opponent is the only possible option? With Angstrom dead, Mark finds himself stranded in another universe. It's a kind of predicament he can't exactly punch his way out of, but a future version of the Guardians of the Globe from his universe manages to find him. This includes an older version of Eve, who insists that he tells the Eve in his universe how he feels. There's always been a strong suggestion that Eve has feelings for Mark, and older Eve just wants to know how he feels, even if he doesn't like her, so she can move on. When Mark gets back to his universe in time, he meets with Eve, and while it seems like he might say something, he holds back. This seems to be a plot thread to pick up another time. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Alan and Nolan finally meet. Alan tells Nolan about the Coalition's fight against the Viltrum Empire and asks him to join them. The only problem is that Nolan seems entirely disinterested in anything, and in a shocking admission, mentions that he misses Debbie. Whereas Invincible Season 1 presents Nolan as more or less irredeemable, Season 2 ends by showing a glimmer of hope and love within him. With such an expansive world and eclectic cast of characters, it's understandable that some Invincible plotlines have to occasionally take a back seat. For example, Titan is completely absent through Season 2. The second season also introduces a couple of plot threads to keep in the back of your mind going into Season 3 and beyond. For starters, there's that sequid that got smuggled onto Earth inside Russ Livingston. Without getting into what happens in the comics, it seems like more sequids will populate the Earth and could prove a unique foil for the various heroes. Sequids have already proven themselves tough to kill. Plus, their hosts are legitimately innocent people who just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So there's a small moral element to just killing them all. There's also Kahor, who's had a pretty bad string of luck in Invincible so far. In Season 1, someone unearths his tomb, but he's quickly reburied once Invincible flies by and covers the area with sand. In Season 2, he comes back when two women unearth him, but womp womp, he can only possess the body of a man.
Wait, you're both female?
And?
Then Invincible comes along and buries him in a sandstorm again. Kahor isn't actually in the Invincible comics, so it's unclear what the grand plan for him could be, if there even is one. It's possible this will just be a running gag, with Kahor almost escaping every season.
Soon you will once again teach this world what it means to truly suffer.